Welcome to Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. I'm joined today by my special guest, Dr. Bill Limond. Bill is a CIO, a non-executive director, and a true technology leader. Bill's extensive career highlights include senior positions within BP, Pilkington, British Gas, BAE Systems, Transport for London, the Department of Work and Pensions, the City of London, Qatar Supreme Council of Health, and the Cabinet Office, to name just a few. Bill has an MA degree in physics from Oxford University and a PhD in geophysics and physics from Cambridge University, as well as several linguistic degree-level qualifications. He is also a fellow of the BCS and has featured in countless publications across a distinguished career. It's such an honor to have you here today with us, Bill.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. I'm really looking forward to this. I hope everybody else is too.
So really, it's just wanted to start out with where did you start your IT career, and did you know that was the career path that you wanted to follow?
The answer is going to be no, and it's a rather tortuous path, I'm afraid. Started off doing a PhD in geophysics at Cambridge, but actually that led me to France, to Paris, because the compute capability in Cambridge wasn't big enough for what I was trying to do. Trying to do the impossible, which seems to be the story of my life ever since. But they said I couldn't get a reflection off the Moho River discontinuity between the crust and the mantle. But at the end of the day, did. So it led me very much into how do you work with people, how do you actually persuade them that this is going to work, especially as we were dealing at sea with two different ships, one British, one French, and doing all sorts of things like dropping lots of explosives in the water. I could tell you some stories about that. But that led me then on finished the PhD, did a postdoctoral again. The thing about geophysics was we were using computers a lot. We were into super number crunching, and I'd obviously done a lot at Cambridge. Then I did a postdoc with my wife actually in Paris. Following on with the work I'd done there, and had a lovely trip down to the Antarctic and trips to the Mediterranean. But then decided, need to do something useful. And my wife had got a job in BP back in London. So I came back to BP and joined BP. It's led from there into computing, not directly, but as a user, and very much computing commercial terms, etc., for exploration and production, because in a sense the oil companies, and certainly in E&P, exploration and production, and linear programming, were the guys who really brought computing in at a corporate level very early on, and were starting to put in things like strategy and governance for information systems. So I was having a varied career in BP, became deputy chief executive of BP Fast Moving Consumer Goods. Interesting organization. We used to sell 80% of the UK's private label wash-up liquid. I bet you didn't know that.
I didn't know, no.
And then, as BP does, it moves you on every 2 or 3, 4 years. And I decided I was caught on the hop because I was asked to do an IT strategy for BP Fast Moving Consumer Goods, and then I hadn't really any idea what to do. But we had set up in BP a group called the Information Systems Administration, which was looking at strategy and governance and trying to get things together, because it was realized that this was important. And people were doing sorts of odd things all around the world. So joined them and got an education very much on the job with them doing their IT strategy, vendor relations and stuff like that. I was then going to go back into E&P in exploration and production in BP, but I was headhunted to do a job as the first CIO in Pilkington up in St Helens. a highly innovative company because they had developed the float glass process, of course, which is now how glass and flat glass and auto glass is made worldwide. So a real success story. And then it led on from there. So CIO at Pilks, and then I was headhunted again into British Gas. And it was just at the time British Gas was completely pivoting from being a 13 region organization, which was very much public sector, into 5 strategic units across the UK and 3 internationally. I mean, BG, where British Gas were actually running things like Buenos Aires gas infrastructure and Cairo's gas infrastructure. So there was quite a big international business. And then it led on from there into various, so that was a very big change program, by the way, with British Gas, because we were pivoting and then we were splitting into the regulated and non-regulated businesses. So the non-regulated went into Centrica and the regulated went into BG International, along with the EMP. And that led me on, and then I started up an interim career. So that means that I go in for reasonably short periods of time, varying from 6 months to 2 years, into an organization, either in setup mode, setting up what they need for digital transformation or their IT, and or else into troubleshooting mode if they're having problems. And it's amazing how many problems organizations can have with their IT. So as you said, Dave, then a range of organizations that I've worked with very much.
So over that time, what do you think's been the best bit of advice that you've received, during your career?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? And I think it's around keep your persistence, keep that, keep the grit going, keep the enthusiasm, the empathy, and the energy, because they really beat what you'll find a lot of in your corporate career: ignorance and apathy. And really very much adhere to strategic opportunism. Be ready for the opportunities and keep learning. And the great thing, Dave, I find about IT and digital now and information management and data management is it's the fact that you've got to keep learning, you've got to keep curious, you've got to keep that open mind.
Yeah.
And that really helps with this sort of career, because the thing is changing. Heraclitus said, change is constant. And in this particular area, it really is. And that's the exciting thing about it. I mean, you can't sit still, essentially. There are basic precepts, there are basic tenets that you've got to keep to, and certainly in terms of your own ethics and so on. But, the whole world is changing, and it's changing the world. So that's the exciting thing about it.
So what do you think the main challenges facing technology leaders are today then?
I don't think it's the technology.
It's the people.
We did a thing on the old adage, people process technology. Actually, that came from management in the 90s, which BP was involved in. But actually, every time I go into an interim assignment, especially in troubleshooting, it's around people, it's around organizations. It's the need for that empathy. It's the need to cut through where are the roadblocks? Where are the real decisions being made? And where have we got problems? A good example was TfL. The chief executive of TfL was tearing his hair out, couldn't get onto the network, etc., etc., etc. Get me a CIO. I came in as the CIO, and actually the issue was around the service that was being provided at the head office on just the IT services which had just been set up. But the real issues in TfL were much, much bigger than that, obviously, because what we were trying to do at the time was to pull together, it was the strategy to pull together all the modes, the buses, the tubes, the DLR, to really support Ken Livingstone's strategy at the time, which was to make make things much easier for the traveling public when London's population and working population was growing by 1 million in 10 years. And of course, there were big obstacles to that. So we brought in a lot in TfL. I mean, things like Oyster card and congestion charging, journey planner, I don't know if you remember that, and then back that up with SAP back office systems in finance, HR.
So how do you go about creating such a culture of innovation like that, though? Because they're massive programs of work, aren't they? And huge success as well.
Politics, believe me.
So, but how do you actually go around, creating that culture of innovation within an organization?
It's not me on my own. It's and to a certain extent, that culture has to come from the top. There's got to be clear direction. And there's got to be that sort of open-mindedness and curiosity and learning type of environment in the organization. I mean, I learned that very early on with doing a PhD at Cambridge, that every coffee time and every tea time we would sit down and discuss things around the table. And it was exciting. It was the time of, plate tectonics, etc. But you've got to, that has to come from the top. And it did come from the top. In TfL, there was a clear strategy to make things much easier for the traveling public. So in that sort of environment, you can bring in the sorts of innovations. Are they innovations? Actually, when you look at congestion charging, there was no new technology in congestion charging, but it was all putting it all together. That was very novel, and the Evening Standard, in its wisdom, told us that it wouldn't work first time. So, but that culture of innovation, it does very much come from the top, and the organizations which have it. I mean, Pilks definitely had it with the float glass technology. Geophysics had it, and certainly in BP, BAE Systems, we had it, and British Gas, obviously, we had it, because we were shifting everything around, completely turning the whole industry inside out. So there was that sort of environment, and it's exciting, and there's a lot of curiosity, a lot of learning, and a lot of improving. How can you actually, how can you improve things? People open to that. Open to failure, which is not a typically British characteristic. I think it's much more of an American characteristic. But when you get that, the ability to actually accept failure and move on, openness and tolerance, and creating that sort of culture, what I call an open-minded organization.
No, I absolutely agree with you there. So what innovations or technologies do you think that organizations should be looking to adopt today? Now, what are those cutting edge technologies that you think are really important to businesses?
I think we talk about technology a lot, but information technology is what we create the systems from, the information systems. And why do we create information systems? It's really to manage data, manage information, manage business processes, all those sorts of things, and improve the value of the information asset. The real asset in any organization is the data and the information and the knowledge in the minds of the people and the intelligence that we have. So it's anything which we have which can improve that, improve the information, improve the value of that as an asset. That's all important. And giving information and knowledge and intelligence at the hands of the people when they need it. Those are the sorts of things. So a lot of tools will be coming along. You look at the different sectors. Some of the sectors are behind. Certainly in some of the public sectors, they're behind. I mean, you look at health, there's a lot to do there. But it's one good example actually was here when we were starting to be locked down. The Garda actually then really ramped up their mobile technology, put really a lot of data in the hands of the Garda. Certain European police forces have already done that, but it was really good to see the enthusiasm that the Garda then had. You know, if they're out on the out on the beat, out in cars, etc., to have that technology. But it's the data and the quality of the data that really count. So how much can you really rely on that data? And as you start to look at things like artificial intelligence, IoT, etc., it's going to be the quality of the data which makes or breaks the success of those particular technologies. So the two are bound together. Sorry, I'm banging on a bit there, but for me, data quality, information quality, information as an asset, these are the important things to create the knowledge sharing organization.
I absolutely agree. But, we talk about some of the digital transformation that organizations go through. How do you think you can create that digital transformation and the culture of innovation while also trying to support legacy systems at the same time?
Yeah, that's a very good question, one I keep asking. I think, different organizations are in different stages of maturity and on the journey. I mean, some of them are well down that journey. The issue, of course, is that a lot of that data and a lot of that information is in the legacy systems. And one of the definitions of legacy, of course, is, these are the systems that actually work. So when you're moving, it can be quite an involved process to retain, obviously, the crown jewels in terms of data and information in those assets, especially when you look at the public sector. I mean, a lot of that is citizen data, it's privacy data, and you've got to be very careful what you do with it. So it needs very careful planning when you're moving from one sort of environment to another, and especially if you're moving, for instance, from on-prem to a more of a cloudy type of environment. Not easy, got to be well planned and well explained.
Absolutely agree. So what do you think is the best way to communicate the strategic value of technology when talking to the board about investments into IT and into technology? What are those key factors in communicating that to the executive group?
In my experience, the most meaningful discussions are when I explain that, what I call that information value chain. Well, the technology is there to deliver the systems, but it's there to manage your information assets, your knowledge assets, which are the people with the knowledge, the information, creating the knowledge sharing organization. And it's when you focus on that, as the light comes on, it's a light bulb. Oh, this is not just about the technology. Yep, the technology is damned important because that's what manages the data, that's what manages the assets, that's what delivers a lot of the stuff to us now in our hands. I mean, these mobiles are computers we couldn't have imagined years ago. But it's the information, that's the information I need for making my decisions, making it fast. I mean, the Garda here were absolutely clear. They're focused on the information, the data. They need to have that absolutely right. You can't get the wrong person because then you're into problems. And the number of cases that go to court and they're then thrown out because you got the wrong information because the database wasn't right. So it's the quality of information, it's the quality of data. I find that connects with the board and the ability to get that information to them quickly. the ability to close, for instance, the results, to get that management information quickly to the board. But I'm sure you've been in similar situations, Dave, because you've been in these sorts of companies which are moving fast.
I think it's really about delivering shareholder value, and it's using technology to drive that competitive advantage within an organization. I think I always think when conveying these things with a board, it's about putting things in business outcomes rather than focusing on the underlying technology. So
customer satisfaction, deliver services, help the business become more productive, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
So if you were to, if I was to ask you to, to give one bit of advice to someone who wants to start a career in technology and, perhaps into technology leadership, what would that advice be?
I think it goes back to this need, can do the impossible. There's a poem I like. I don't know if you know it, Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. It goes on, but there's a lot in there. There's a lot of basic stuff. You've got to keep that open mind. It's all going to change, and that's part of the fascination of the area we're in, isn't it? There's no way you're going to future-proof your career in here. You've got to be open-minded. The other thing is curiosity. Keep learning. Be open-minded. The other one is try to keep that glass half full. And it's around information, knowledge, data, and how the technology supports all that, and customer service or citizen service if you're in public sector, or how you help save patients. Look what's happened in the health sector in the last year. It's really come on by leaps and bounds. Okay, not always terribly well planned, but and video conferencing, that's really come on in leaps and bounds, and people have been able to see how the technology and the ability to be able to communicate over distances, to transfer information instantaneously. I mean, I've seen projects here which have been held up for years actually just get the go ahead in days. And it's keeping that open mind, but keep learning. That's the main thing.
I think if there's one thing we can guarantee working in a technology industry, is that change is guaranteed, and that should be something that people embrace and want to be excited about. It's certainly the reason why I'm in the industry.
It's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting, and I mean, Heraclitus has said this way back 700 BC. Change is constant.
Yeah, no, I think that's one thing that's definitely guaranteed, and what we have today will look very different, in future days. So.
The other thing I'd say to people coming in is keep that can do. People may say things are impossible, but actually, what I've learned is if you set your mind to it, you can do a heck of a lot.
Absolutely fantastic advice. So it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today, Bill. I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank you again for sharing those career insights and experience, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy it as well. So thank you once again. That's it. It's been really great.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, really enjoyed it, and have a good weekend.
Next week's podcast, I'll be talking with the fantastic Joe Drake, who is the CIO at the Huck Group. Please subscribe to the podcast to stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.